Anyone who has a bit of a heart and a bit of knowledge on environment in order to understand that this is a very important area.
الناس مع الهور واعتماد الهور على الناس واعتماد الناس على الهور.
It's hard to believe when we're standing here that only a couple of years ago this area was a dry desert.
In January 2010, the Ministry of Oil in Iraq awarded Shell a 45% shareholding as operator in the Majnoon oil field, with Petronas owning 30% and the Iraqi state partner, the Misan Oil Company, owning the remaining 25%.
I'm standing here at the northern end of the Majnoon oil field in southern Iraq. Majnoon is 52 kilometers by 15 kilometers wide, and the Iraqi government estimate reserves of 38 billion barrels of oil, making it one of the 3 largest oil fields in the world. In 2010, Shell and our partners entered into a new agreement with the Iraqi authorities to further develop the Majnoon oil field.
One of the many unique challenges in developing Majnoon has been the clearance of explosive remnants of war left behind from the Iraq-Iran War of the 1980s. Another has been the recruitment and mobilization of local contractors, as Shell is committed to the creation of local employment. However, despite these challenges, good progress has been made.
We have put in a new oil installation, the largest oil installation in more than a decade in Iraq. We have drilled 18 new wells. We have cleared the historic Shatt al-Arab waterway and sailed seagoing barges to the gates of Majnoon, opening up for free trade the Shatt al-Arab for the first time in 25 years. Our field extends another 20 kilometers to the north into this beautiful wetland area. And we understand that our obligation in developing this field is to respect that wetland for future generations of Iraqi people.
The ancient civilizations and city-states that grew out of this rich and fertile land, known as Mesopotamia, are among the earliest known non-nomadic agrarian societies. The Ubaid, Sumer, Akkad, Assyrian, and Babylonian civilizations all emerged from these lands, giving rise to the widely accepted theory that Mesopotamia is the cradle of civilization. The 2 great Mesopotamian rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, converge in southern Iraq in a complex of shallow freshwater lakes, marshes, and seasonally inundated plains, making up the largest river delta in the Middle East, known as the Mesopotamian Marshes, or individually called the Central, Hammar, and Al-Huwayza Marshes. Historically, the collective marshes covered an area of over 20,000 square kilometers and were not only home to huge populations of birds and other wildlife, but also the marsh Arabs. But since the 1970s, this once great ecosystem has been in decline. The Tigris and the Euphrates are among the most intensively dammed rivers in the world. Water used for agriculture upstream has prevented water flow into the marshes. But the most significant impact has been the massive and deliberate drainage works implemented in the 1990s. In fact, it is estimated that by the time Saddam Hussein's regime ended, 90% of the original marshland had been destroyed, often reduced to a salt-encrusted dust bowl. Of the 3 main marsh areas, Al-Huwayza now remains the most intact marshland of the Mesopotamian system.
وللعلم هور الحويزة هو الهور الوحيد اللي ما قدر صدام يجففه. ما قدر يجففه لأنه كانت مياه الكرخة تجي من إيران وتغذيه ما يقدر يقطعها. بعد التحرير مثل ما قلت لك اهل المنطقه بداوا يقصقصون السداد وبدا يرجع المي. هور الحويزه اول هور رجع، هور الحويزه اول هور رجع ورجع بقوه. القصب خلال 6 اشهر بدا يرجع، الناس بدات تصيد بداء بال 2004 اشباط 2004. وأهوار العراق هي المثال الحقيقي لما يسمى اليوم يسموه sustainable development. أهوارنا هي المثال الحقيقي لمعيشة الناس مع الهور واعتماد الهور على الناس واعتماد الناس على الهور.
However, in 2008, the Iranians completed a dam on the Karkha River, which resulted in the Al Huwayza Marsh receding back to virtually the same reduced levels last seen under Saddam.
هور الحويزة هو الحكومة العراقية أعلنته منطقة رامسار، يعني تعهدت دوليا بالحفاظ على هذا الهور. ونتيجة للسدة الإيرانية أعلنت الحكومة العراقية أنه هذا راح نحطه بالمونترو لستة مونترو اللي هي الأهوار المهددة، وعلى الدول الموقعة إلى رامسار التعاون لإنقاذ هيك مناطق.
The boundary of the Al Huwayza Marshes, Ramsar site, which was designated a wetland of international importance by the Iraqi government in 2007, overlaps with the northern half of the Majnoon oil field. These wetlands themselves do not currently extend to the southern boundary of the Ramsar site, as water levels have reduced since the Iranian dam was completed. However, water levels can vary significantly year on year, so land that was dry and arid in December 2012 quickly sprang back to life in early 2013, following a wet winter and heavy snowmelt upstream. It's against this sensitive backdrop that Shell needs to operate.
We are looking very carefully at how we can develop an oil field in such an outstanding area of natural beauty. We have carried out a biodiversity action plan to give us a good baseline, working with our partners in Nature Iraq, in Wetlands International, and IUCN, as well as the Iraqi authorities, on how we can make a sustainable development while preserving and enhancing this beautiful area.
The Biodiversity Action Plan is a program that we are running and put in place in order to understand how the Al Huwayza Marshes works.
The work was carried out over a full year in order to capture seasonal changes and was undertaken by Mott MacDonald in conjunction with a local NGO called Nature Iraq. 17 survey points were selected, both inside and outside of the concession area, and at each point the team assessed the area for the types of habitat and species present: birds, mammals, fish, reptiles, amphibians, and dragonflies. They measured the quality of water and how pristine the environment is.
We are in Site 6 for the Biodiversity Action Plan project. I'm trying to do plant classification, and for the plants that I cannot identify, collect samples and press them and take them to the lab and try to use some botanical keys to identify these plants.
In addition to the biodiversity surveys, the team also assessed the community's use of the marshes. They wanted to understand how the biodiversity of the marshes in terms of reed gathering for houses, reed fodder for the water buffaloes and fishing, for example, is used for livelihoods in the predominantly marsh Arab communities that live in and around the marshland system. Nature Iraq's work is still ongoing, and they have gained valuable insights into the condition of the marshes and its peoples. In some places, the marshes indicate that they are of a good quality. At survey point 15, a variety of dragonflies have been found, which suggests that the area could be low in pollution, and in other areas, the surveys have thrown up some interesting surprises.
Lily, Lymphoides indica. And on the marshes, after 90s when the marshes dry. This plant disappears, especially from Hweza. And that means the nymphoides or water lily came back to Hweza marsh.
Because the security constraints in Iraq meant that the survey team were unable to survey animals after dark, camera traps were placed around Majnoon in order to help understand the movements of nocturnal animals, as well as the desert fox and the jungle cat. The grey wolf was also captured on film, a surprising discovery, as it was thought to be extinct in Iraq, at least prior to the surveys. However, in other places, the picture of health in the marshes is not so good, as the availability of water and the stresses on the local communities remain a problem.
والله وضعنا استاذ موزي يعني كلش وضعنا حيل تعبان. احنا تدري عيشتنا على الهور، ناس على الهور عيشتنا، يروح من الهور يعني يصير معاناتنا حيل تعبان. الله وكيلك.
Fish catch at the market surveyed in the area remain small, and in some areas local marsh Arabs travel significant distances with water buffaloes to collect reeds for use and sell. There are a number of initiatives being investigated by the Ministry of Water Resources in Iraq, but it is likely that in the short term at least, the Hweza marshes will remain an area under stress without more water. Finding the balance between the environment, the people, and development will be key in managing this area.
Shell and our partners are committed to a responsible and sustainable development of the Majnoon oil field, protecting the wetlands environment behind me.
The insights gathered through the Biodiversity Action Plan process are being used by the design engineers to plan future infrastructure away from the sensitive parts of the field and to design them so they minimize their impact on the landscape. The actions from the plan are shaping up to include partnering with local universities to gather further data on key species, and actions are planned to extensively engage with Iraqi and international stakeholders to build awareness and understanding of the marshes and their importance to Iraq.
عملية إنعاش الهور والبقاء والحماية على الهور يحتاج لها جهات عديدة، بدءاً من الحكومة العراقية بتخصيص كمية محددة من المياه لإرجاع الهور. عندنا دور أهل المنطقة يريدون معيشة بكرامة. للأسف بسبب عدم وجود فرص شغل جاي أهل المنطقة دي يصيدون بشكل جائر مجرمين، وأنا العالم تريد تاكل. فأنا أقول لك حتى الشغل عندها دور بإيجاد فرص عمل لهذا الناس على مود يعيشون بكرامة.
I have been absolutely overwhelmed by the country and its people. The beauty of the land behind us. As we develop this field, we are working with our Iraqi partners to sustain that, to raise their standard of living, to bring money into the economy, and to help the Iraqi people to resettle and rebuild their country.